we'll get to that. First, I want to kind of finish. I'm not gonna say much about the text right now. I'm just gonna read the first couple of lines, but we're gonna really kind of drill down and get to know this text over the next couple of Saturdays. One of the things that I was talking about earlier is about Shanti Diva not being who you would think would write something like this. One of my thoughts about this was when I was coming from Atlanta to San Antonio on the plane last Saturday. It was in the middle of the night, and it was beautiful. It was pitch dark outside the airplane window, and I could see the stars, and I could look down. We're flying over Houston, and the beautiful lights of the city, amazing how big this earth is. All these little tiny street lights and everything everywhere, and then you look up and see those stars, and it was just a beautiful moment. And at the same time, on the seat behind me was the little TV, and I had the earphones in, and I was watching a documentary about, it's called In Search of Greatness, and it's about athletes. And I'm not a huge athlete myself, and I'm not really into sports that much. Played a little football, and of course I was a rodeo clown and stuff like that, but I don't watch sports. But they were interviewing Wayne Gretzky from the hockey, and then Jerry Rice, the receiver, the wide receiver. And what was interesting about them, and it kept making me think of this text, is they weren't supposed to be successful. They weren't the popular ones. They weren't the smart ones. Jerry Rice said he never could lift as much weights as the other football players, and he couldn't even beat him in a race, but he would lay in bed and throw the ball up, and he would visualize himself catching the ball and making these passes, and everything that he did out on the field was heart. It wasn't that he was the fastest or the strongest or the best. He just had a heart for it, And same thing with Wayne Gretzky. I've never watched. Well, I went to the hockey game here several times, but as far as watching it on TV, no. But also as a kid, his dad didn't make him play hockey every day. Didn't put him in some kind of hockey camp. He didn't train to be a hockey player. He loved baseball. He loved football. He loved hockey. He loved all kinds of sports. But he just found that he was a little bit better at hockey, and he just cared a little bit more about it. And then he just followed his heart, and he came up with things that nobody had ever done before. Like he would take the puck behind the goal, and then he would make a quick break and then shoot it back in. And nobody was doing that. Nobody would take the puck behind the goal. But it was compensating because he wasn't so fast. He wasn't so strong. He wasn't so whatever. So he had to come up with his own ways of doing things, And Shanti Diva, he went to this huge university called Nalanda, and all the many of the other ones were really serious students, spent their time studying, went to class and all this stuff. And they said that he was kind of like shunned by other people. It's kind of like the movies where the kid brings his plate out in the lunchroom, and everybody they all scoot over so he can't sit at their table. So Shanti Diva comes out with his lunch plate, and all the other monks are like, I hope he don't sit by me. I hope he doesn't sit by me, And so what happened was they actually wanted to embarrass him, and so they were having this huge celebration, and they said they would pick one monk to go up in front of all the teachers, all the scholars, all the other monks, and give this Dharma talk, this speech. And so people conspired against Shanti Diva and said, you're going to be the one to go up there and speak. And the reason is they thought he'd be so embarrassed because they never saw him study, they never saw him go to class, they never saw him do all this stuff. And they thought, man, he's going to be so embarrassed when we ask him to go up there, he's going to quit. He's going to get his luggage and go back to mama after today, right? And so amazingly, the story goes that when it was time for a student to go up there, they all pointed to Shanti Diva and said, you go up there in front of everybody. And he just quietly got up there in front of everybody, and he said, do you want me to preach on something that you've heard before, or do you want to hear something new? And they were like, what? Oh my God, and they said, tell us something new. And he recited this is a Dharma talk that he gave, and it was written down, and it changed Buddhism. It's changed people's lives since the moment that it came into existence. And it's so much about loving kindness and compassion and generosity, and using those things to work with our own minds. And what they didn't realize was that behind closed doors, he was meditating, he was studying, he was journaling, he was getting to know his own mind, you know. And so, a very beautiful history of how it came about. So I'm not going to stay long on it today. I'm just going to read the very first part here, and then we'll really start digging down the next couple of Saturdays. So Shantideva gets up there in front of the whole university, and he says, respectfully, I prostrate myself to all the Sugatas. So what he's saying is, he's setting the tone here. He's saying, I'm bow before all the Buddhas. In Buddhism, we hear of Gautama Shakyamuni Buddha, which is the Buddha of our time that we remember. But before him, there was other Buddhas. And this has been going on a long time, even before our Buddha. There's been many Buddhas on this planet. And according to Buddhism, there's many worlds out there that are inhabited. There are trillions and trillions and trillions, infinite space, full of planets that are inhabited by beings. I don't know what they look like. You know, they may not look exactly like us or whatever, but they have their own form of Buddha on their planet. This message of Buddhism is a universal message of how to work with the mind and build up your compassion and your love and generosity and things like that. Because on every one of these planets, when somebody dies, they still get reborn and reborn and reborn. It's kind of like a school until you reach enlightenment. You're learning until you can finally reach enlightenment, right? And so he's saying here, I respectfully bow before all the Sugatas, all the Buddhas that have ever been in every world at every time. And then he says, who are endowed with the power of Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is kind of like the source of everything. You could say that everything that exists comes out of the Dharmakaya. It's like the source, or in Buddhism you would call it the void. It's almost like a black hole, let's say. Everything might come out of a black hole, on the other side we don't know, you know. And then he says, as well as to the noble children, which we are the noble children, people that are on the path of Buddhism, that are studying this path, we are the noble children of the Buddha. And to all those who are worthy of veneration. He's saying everybody, anywhere that is worthy of this bow. He said, I shall explain how to engage in the vows of the Buddha's children. So he's saying that this text that he's writing, or this speech that he's giving, is you could call it a vow to Buddhist children or to bodhisattvas. Have anybody ever heard the phrase bodhisattva before? No? I wasn't going to say this, but so I went to go see Endgame, the Avengers movie, and they got all of them in there, right? The Hulk and Iron Man and all that stuff. Well, Iron Man, yeah. And me and my wife realized that we hadn't seen the first 3 Iron Men for some reason. We thought we did, but we went back and watched them. You're an Iron Man fan?
That's the only Iron Man. That's it. I don't like anything else.
Oh, really?
I do the poses
Okay, let's see it. Get on the table and do it.
Did you see the new movie then?
No, I haven't. I need to see it.
Yeah, it's good.
You love Iron Man.
I love
See it.
it.
Yeah. So anyway, so right now we're moving into like the Marvel universe and everything, right? You know, so in Buddhism, you would be happy to know there is a superhero, and it's called a Bodhisattva. And this is what he's saying. He's writing a text which could turn into a vow of a Bodhisattva, or a potential Bodhisattva, right? And so a Bodhisattva is a person in Buddhism that says, as long as there are suffering beings, as long as these planets exist, I choose to delay my enlightenment. I don't want to go and become enlightenment and disappear out of the scene. I want to keep being reborn. Every generation, every time I die, I want to reborn and come back to help somebody in some way, whether it's financially, whether it's medically, and the biggest form of generosity really is sharing the Dharma, is helping somebody become awakened so that they will find liberation. We're living in what they say samsara, we have aches and pains and troubles and nothing lasts, your car breaks down and all this stuff is samsara. Well, enlightenment is nirvana, is getting out of samsara into this awakened state of nirvana, right? And that's kind of like getting off the wheel of life and death. So a Bodhisattva says, I don't want to get off the wheel until everybody else gets off the wheel. I want to be the last person to get off the wheel, which is, yeah. I've had a pretty rough 47 years. I can much less think about coming back over and over and over and over until the very last person reaches enlightenment, And once again, that's bodhicitta. That's if you think so, there is a Tibetan phrase that says, if you want sadness, only think of yourself. If you want happiness, think of others. So at every moment of our lives, we could literally think, there are some people that don't have a bottle of water. I should cherish this. There are some people that can't afford to eat what I'm eating. I'm getting a paycheck on Friday. There's some people that don't get a paycheck on Friday. Anything that you could feel sad about, when maybe you look at the paycheck and like, man, they should really pay me more. With the very next thought, I'm grateful for this paycheck. May every being in the world be able to make at least as much as I make. It's working with the mind. By focusing on myself, no, I'm focusing on others. Okay, good. Well, that feels better. I'm worried about my own problems, my own sadness, my own whatever. Oh, no, I'm thinking about other people and I'm wishing them happiness. I'm wishing them to be... I'm wishing everyone to be kind and gentle with one another and all these things, It's constantly flipping it, And like I say, and you might not even do anything. You might be sitting in your house and never see anybody. But still in your mind, you're praying for others. You're wishing goodness for others. You're sending out positive vibes, I guess, out to the world just to get out of your own mind and your own troubles. Does that make sense? And so, what Shantideva is saying, if you want to become one of these superheroes, if you want to become a bodhisattva, I'm writing a way for you to do that. Here's kind of like a manual of how to become a bodhisattva and to get to that level where you can think of others before yourself all the time, which will bring happiness to your life. So then I'm just going to read his next 4 lines. It says, the meaning of which I have condensed in accordance with the scripture. So what he's saying is, Shantideva is saying, all the Buddhist scriptures that have ever been, I'm condensing them all down into this one talk. All of Buddhism can be found in this talk that I'm giving you today. And it says, there is nothing here that has not been explained before. In other words, Buddha has said all of this before in different ways. I'm just putting it all together. And it says, and I have no skill in the art of rhetoric or talking or writing or any of these things. He's saying, like, I'm coming from a very humble place. This is my understanding. If it's useful for you, great. But I can't say that I'm a great teacher or a great lecturer or a great writer or anything. I'm just going to do...
that while he was up there?
Yes. He said, I have no skill in the art of rhetoric or speaking or whatever. So don't expect this to be some great speech, but I'm going to do my best, basically. And then he says, I say this or write this only in order to acquaint my mind to the teachings. And then he's later on going to say, if other people should follow it or read it or understand it, even more beneficial. But he's saying, I came up with all this myself so that I could keep loving kindness and generosity and joy on my mind. So he studied all of Buddhist scriptures. He put it all together in some form that he understands. And now he's going to share it with us. Not because he thinks it's something or, anything great. He's saying that he only did it so that he came up with it to inspire himself, to encourage himself every day. He's thinking of these things so that he can stay encouraged. Make sense? All right, so we'll dig in deeper for sure next time. It is a beautiful text. I hope you come back. Even look for it online and read it at home. Sometimes without reading a commentary, it's a little hard to understand because it's so, they call it pithy. Pithy, I think I'm saying it right. It's like short bursts of wisdom. And then in the commentary, it takes like 6 pages of commentary to explain that one sentence. So it's kind of like you really got to dig down deep. So if you have your chant book, we'll go ahead and do the chant on page 7. Okay. Contemplation of the 10 perfecting qualities. May I be generous and helpful. May I be virtuous and well-disciplined. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. May I be honest and truthful. May I be firm and resolute. May I be kind, compassionate, and friendly. May I be humble, calm, quiet, unruffled, and serene. The discourse on loving kindness. Just as a mother would protect her only child even at her own life's risk, so let every cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings. Let our hearts of boundless love pervade the whole world, so that all beings without exception might be happy. Closing dedication of merit. If I have obtained any merit by the result of this practice, may it be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. May they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. Shrine attendant bows 3 times at the altar, takes down the flowers, puts out the candle and incense, and is seated. Closing dedication of merit. If I have obtained any merit by the... Are you on page 8? Oh, we did? Oh my God, let's do it again. Let's read it together because it's beautiful. If I have obtained any merit by the result of this practice, may it be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. And may they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. So that right there sums up the whole Bodhisattva, the way of the Bodhisattva. If you can just say that prayer every morning and every night, wishing everyone happiness, that will lift your heart. So the Sangha bows to the Buddha and to each other with smiles of gratitude. And so now we're grateful to the Buddha for the teachings, and we're grateful to one another. Over the shoulder bows, drive-by bowing.